None.
All right, let's get into it. I don't want to get too much story. We can do it
I
in a
haven't
thing.
convinced my wife of that yet.
Well, dude, Josh, cheers. Estates by Vallario. Did I say that properly?
Yes, you did.
All right, good. I didn't have too much bourbon yet then. Dude, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. I'm excited. I'm excited to be here. I been looking forward to this. At first, I thought you ghosted me because I didn't hear from you for a little
No.
bit, and then I was like, and then you contacted me. I was like, yes.
No, I had you on the radar the whole time. It's, when Evan and I came up with this idea, it was, for a little bit of housekeeping, was driven off of let's spotlight local business owners, let's inspire people to leave the cubicles and get out of the rat race, and let's inspire that guy that didn't love the traditional route to go into business for himself. So Matt Baldwin, who has done some work for you, which is my brother-in-law, which from Belmar Plumbing we had him on.
Good dude.
He was like, I guess one of the first or second times he met you, he was like, listen, you got to talk to this dude, Josh. And naturally, I get my guard up because I'm like, well, who's Josh? Who's this guy, right? Because I really try to do everything on a moral and ethic line in my life. And he had nothing but praises to sing about you.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah, and then talking to you briefly about your story, I said, dude, this guy is perfect for the show. So, again, thank you for coming on.
Well, I hope I don't disappoint.
You won't. You won't. I won't let you. So where'd you grow up again?
Grew up in Manalapan. Good old
Manalapan.
Manalapan, yeah.
In the woods, Manalapan, or like with the Italians, Manalapan?
Well, back then, it was pretty much all woods. One of those little developments right by the high school, surrounded by woods. It was a good childhood.
Good childhood?
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Good parents?
My mother,
Yeah.
she was the rock.
Yeah.
She got married a couple times.
Yeah, women are tough.
Yeah, so
Really good.
she's on her fourth husband. She's been with this guy for 26 years, give or take, 26, I think. But, my father left when I was 5 or 6. And then she remarried my ex-stepfather. They stayed together until I was about 13.
Now, is your real father still in your life, or?
Yeah, he died. I was 28 when he died.
28.
Yeah.
Was he somebody in your life as you were coming up and building all these things? And
No. So he left. When he left, and he disappeared for several years without a trace, just vanished. And then one day came back, and that's when I started the whole visitation thing, spending time in the Catskills, as we were talking about before we started.
Love the Catskills.
Yeah, the Catskills are great. So he died when I was 28. I was into. So when it was a weird time in my life when he passed. I was living with a girl. We were engaged to be married. We were together 7-8 years, but unfortunately she had some personal issues. And it was more of a codependent relationship. I was taking care of her. And so I had broken up with her because I couldn't do it anymore. And I had quit my first corporate job at ITG. I was there 5 or 6 years. I quit that, and I bought my first house all within a 3-month span, and my dad died. So within 3 months, within 3 months, I left a long-term relationship, was newly single since I was 20. So I had to figure out how to date as a successful adult male. I started a new job, bought a house, and my dad died. It was interesting times.
That's a lot, and you were 28 years old. That's a lot of stress.
28, yeah, I was 28.
So let me walk through your life. So did you like school? Were you a good student?
I have ADHD. So I did not like school. I was better with more of a hands-on. I need to be highly passionate about what I'm doing, or I just glaze over like Dunkin' Donuts.
You lose focus.
So I have to be all the time hyper-focused on something. And the only thing I've been able to do to remain hyper-focused is work on things where I'm moving or that I'm highly passionate about.
So I want to stay on ADHD because I have that as well. It's the label they gave me that I thought gave me the ability to do what I do, not hold me back.
Yeah.
And
Once you figure out what you do.
yeah, it's a superpower actually.
Yeah.
Because the way that you're able to take in information at such a high pace, and not that other intelligent people can't do that as well, but once you find that thing you enjoy, you're able to move again at such a faster pace than others in your arena because of that ADHD. And you know, obviously you were just elaborating that once you got hyper focused, it was a superpower for you.
And it also allows me to do 8,000 things at once.
Yeah.
Which, you know, in my line of work, at my volume, it's.
Now let's talk about your capacity, right? So you talk about 8,000 things. Sometimes I become frustrated to a flaw with others who don't move at my pace because they don't have ADHD. And,
or the drive or the passion.
Yeah, both
Yep.
sometimes. And the ability to jump around and then also retain all that information. So let's pertain it to your industry. You're having your rental properties. You have a problem at the rental property. You have another new sink that you're putting at one rental property. You're flipping a house. You're buying a new rental. And each one of these different buckets, I'll call them, has problems and or goals within them.
Yep.
Talk about your capacity and ability to retain all that, because that was something that I found that, you know, I could hear the words to the song once and remember it. It's
if you go in my office, it's a million papers everywhere, and it's just organized chaos. But I have giant 8-foot-long whiteboards, and on the whiteboards, they're designated to, because I essentially have 3 businesses. I have my rental portfolio. So on my rental portfolio whiteboard, I have all of my leases, when they're going to expire, you know, the broken down by units, by name, any deferred maintenance that has to get done. On my contracting business, so my customer-facing business, where I do renovation work for customers, I have all of my projects on another whiteboard with, you know, kind of, I wouldn't call them major milestones. It's all broken down by mini milestones, like a 3-week snapshot of what has to happen.
Yeah, you're mapping out those projects.
And then I have my development boards for my development business, where I build custom homes for myself. I have all those projects mapped out as to, you know, that's more of a major milestone, what has to happen, and then, you know, next major milestone, what has to happen.
Yeah, you have goals and sub-goals.
Yeah, so it's that and lists and Post-it notes, and Google Calendar is the only way I can keep track. I also use Evernote.
Yeah.
So, but
so before we get further into your businesses, went through high school, decent student, didn't love school because of your ADHD, and I fully can sympathize with you on that. You then go off to college. We talked about it earlier quickly. You were removed because you didn't love to do the work.
I partied too much.
Yeah, you were having fun.
I liked to party. So I think after it was my first year. So my first semester, I went right after I graduated high school. I did a summer program, and I did really well because there was no distractions. Mm-hmm. And then September, regular semester started. I started to do okay, but then I got distracted because I was on my own. I had this newfound freedom, and that morphed into slowly degrading in my schoolwork. And second semester, I was done.
Yeah, you were just over it.
I checked out. I was partying. That's my main focus was just going out and having fun. I barely went to class. I got academically dismissed, and I was in a pretty bad place. You know,
How old were you at that time exactly?
19.
19.
Yeah. I went through a pretty serious depression, and I think that's what was fueling the going out and partying so much.
Yeah, you were chasing the high or the buzz.
Yeah, and So I got academically dismissed. I just met my girlfriend, who was the one I was with until I was 28. And she was, at the time, she was better than me. So I was trying to, I'd reached that low, pretty bad low. And I was trying to climb, to better myself.
On your exponential curve.
Yeah, and I met her, and I started to improve my life, and I got a job as framing houses down the beach in Belmar. And
Who were you working with at the time?
I was working for a guy named George. I was
Kind of took you in and said, "Hey, kid, let's not fuck around. Let's get after it."
well, he verbally abused me on a daily basis, but it is what it is. So I was working for him.
Now hold on. Did that drive you to say, "Screw this guy. I'm gonna get after it and be more successful than you at the time"? Because maybe you were battling some depression. Did it make you feel more down about yourself? Because that's something nowadays, right? We have to be politically correct. I see, and again, I care about people's feelings. I do. I am empathetic, but I also think we have too much catering in this world. Like, how did that affect you?
It hurt my feelings.
Yeah, of course.
That didn't make me strive to be better. What made me strive to be better was right at that when I just hit rock bottom. I'd gotten assaulted. Yeah, I was in college, and I got significantly boot stomped.
Yeah, you got beat up.
Yeah, and by someone who was a friend. And that was the turning point.
Was it uncalled for, or was it over a girl? Over a girl. All right.
But he was like 3 times my size, and I'm still a little guy, but I mean, I was maybe 100 pounds, and he was like, 6 feet tall, muscles. And he just stomped on me.
You bruised his ego. You took his girl.
I didn't take his girl. He broke up with his girl. I took the scraps. So he boot stomped me, and it really messed me up. It turns out years later, in 2015, I had a herniated disc in my neck, so I had to get surgery, and they did an MRI, and they said, "You broke your neck." I'm like, "What are you talking about? See that line? You have a fractured vertebrae. You have a broken neck. When did that happen?" The only thing I could think of is when I went flying across the room, and the college dorm room bunk beds, they're steel, they stack.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he threw me into those, and the bunk bed fell down on the back of my neck, and I went out cold. So I broke my neck from that.
Oh shit.
But
that fired you to say, "Hey, I'm going to stick up for myself. I'm going to do something."
That removed all the fear. After that, I had no fear. I had no fear of one ever getting beat up again, because
it happened.
It happened. Like I
got punched in the face.
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah.
And 2, it made me realize, like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going nowhere real fast. I'm so much better than this. And
now, at the time, was that when you were homeless, kind of sleeping on friends' couches, and
that happened right after.
Right after.
It's right after that transition of getting out of the dorms, getting academically dismissed, and then just bouncing around couches.
Yeah, and you were.
My mother didn't want me home because
She didn't want to deal with it.
I didn't deal with it. At the time, I was angry at her for it, but now as an adult, it makes sense, and I thank her for it, because it was tough love.
Yeah.
I'm sure it broke her heart to do it, but she just said, "Look, if you're not living right, you can't come home."
Yeah, tough love, I think, is a lost art, and I think it will circle back around in this country and realize we've had too much of the entitlement and love and soft environment for too long here. So I want to fast forward a little bit. You're sleeping on people's couches. When we spoke on the phone, you were embarrassed to let them know that you weren't eating food, so you were sneaking in the food cabinet at night.
I was working like 2 days a week. It didn't click. Like, oh, I'm poor, I need money, I should work. Like that and the weird thing is, my first job, I was 11 years old, and I worked all the way up to college, nonstop. So I had a good work ethic. I just, for that whole college period, it just left my mind. So I was working 2 days a week. and I was bussing tables at a local tavern, and as part of they gave us shift meals, so those 2 days a week I had a good meal, but the other days
You were scrounging for whatever you get.
my roommates were going to sleep, or they were going to sleep, and I was going to the cabinets, and there'd be like, it's a typical college house. There'd be like a random box of spaghetti and ketchup.
Yeah, just whatever was
available. And that's what I'd eat. And I remember.
Now, did you feel super bad for yourself at the time, or did you say, I got to get out of this? What am I doing?
I was still trying to clean up my act. I felt stuck. I had a couple people that helped me. I remember my one buddy Mike, who was living in the house. He was working construction in the city while he was going to school, so he was he's making $400 a week, and he had this big change jar. When he wasn't there, sorry Mike if you're watching, when he wasn't there, I'd go into the change jar and I'd take a couple handfuls of quarters, and
get a couple bucks to eat.
Yeah,
get a couple
so
bucks
Mike,
to
I probably owe you some money. So if you want me to send you a check, let me know. But I think he's doing all right. He owns 2 helicopters right now. He owns a helicopter tour business or something.
Mike, you need to get on the show.
Yeah.
So you went through a time in your life where it was like, hey, I'm stuck, I'm lost, I'm removed from college.
Yep.
We fast forward. You then go back. You graduate with honors.
I meet that girl. I got back into college. I was framing houses. And that's when I realized what I wanted to be in Belmar. I saw the developer whose project I was working on, a guy named Brett, and I said, I want to be that guy. I want to develop real estate. I want to do it in Belmar. I want to live in Belmar. And that's when I saw that, this guy driving up at 10 o'clock in the afternoon, checking on his huge condo complex that we were building, with his 2 kids in tow on their bicycles. I said, I want to be that guy.
Mm.
So I finagled some things. I got back into college. I picked something easy so I could just graduate with honors and be done with it. I knew I needed to fund my dream, so I had to make a lot of money. And the only way I knew how to do that was going in technology, because at the time, that's when the internet was just starting. It was
just a boom. What year was that?
That was 1997, 96, 97.
Yeah, that was like not too far after the, internet boom.
So I said, all right, let me work in technology. I hated it, but I knew I could make a lot of money. So I was bartending full time, going to school full time, and working part time for my college doing tech support. And
what college did you graduate from?
I went to Kane.
Kane, all right.
And I say my last year of college, I really started to just send out resumes. It was February of 99, maybe February 2000, maybe it was February 2000, and maybe 99. I had gotten a call from ITG, a little broker dealer in the city. They were looking for a junior Unix systems administrator. So,
and for the people that don't know what a broker dealer is, explain.
It's a trading firm.
Trading firm.
Yeah. So I woke up the morning of the interview. I was living in Elizabeth at the time. Oh, by the way, through this whole thing, I was living in the ghetto. The ghetto.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what you could afford, or?
Yeah, I mean, you look out my window and there was, prostitution and crack transactions just happening right in front of you.
Again, what were you thinking at that time?
What'd you say?
What were you thinking? Like, I got to get out of this. This is driving me. I'm depressed that I'm here. I'm stuck.
I wasn't depressed that I was there. I knew I was not to sound horrible, but I knew I was better than where I was.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something comforting about that environment, meaning people are just trying to do their own thing and everybody leaves you alone.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I woke up the morning of the interview and it was snowing. I don't really want to do this. So I went anyway, and it was me and another person that showed up. We're the only two people who showed up, and they're like, well, we're hiring two people. You guys are the only ones that showed up. You get the job. So, it was my first job. I was still in college, actually. I still hadn't graduated.
Where in the city was this?
It was on Madison. So they were in the Madison and 47th. So I think my starting salary was $65,000 a year plus quarterly bonuses. I think my first year I made $90,000.
That's great.
I haven't even graduated yet.
Yeah, you were, what, 21?
I was older because I took the time off.
Oh, yeah, you did took time off.
I was 23, 24.
Still, great money.
And I thought I was rich. But, I still knew what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be in technology. I wanted to develop real estate. So I saved my money.
And at that point is when you started to just sock money away and say...
I was socking money away. I was running around on the weekends, every weekend, looking at, 10-unit, 15-unit, 20-unit buildings in Weehawken, Journal Square, Jersey City, Union City, that whole area. I mean, I would literally look at a dozen properties every weekend and running, I taught myself how to run the calculations.
What calculations? Talk about that, because there's a lot of people that watch this that want to be in real estate.
The TCO numbers, the profit and loss,
Drill down a little bit more. So how would you know what was a good property you wanted to buy and take over as rental, and how it was going to be profitable, and the
income and
equity
expense,
increase?
Income and expense, rate of return, cap rates.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can buy a property at a great cap rate. But
again, for
sorry,
the mind that doesn't know that, what is?
Well, I mean, real estate is simple. You are renting time and space, and you want to get a return for that time and space. Now there's a lot of real estate guys, especially new ones in this market, where they're barely making any money, and they don't understand, like, there's work involved, and you got to make a decent amount of money to make it worth that.
It's like a glorified thing. Like, I want to go flip a house. I want to go buy rental properties.
Yeah.
You hear so many people saying that.
All my friends were, they're like, oh, you got rentals and it's great and this and that. And as I was building my portfolio, I would say to them, like, yeah, it's fantastic. Any given minute, I'll be elbow deep in human feces, because literally everything I bought somewhere or another along the project line, I would have to touch another person's shit because there was one time I was renovating a building I bought in Asbury Park, and all done, and my electrician left the light in the center, and I said, why'd you leave that light in the center ceiling? That's getting swapped out. He goes, well, I'm not touching that. I said, why? He goes, somebody shit on the junction box in the attic, and I don't want to touch it. And it was probably 30-year-old shit, but somebody shit on the junction box in the attic. Who had to go and clean that up? Me. Mm-hmm. And still to this day, I'll still do that.
Yeah, you were willing to get your hands dirty.
Yeah, I don't care.
Get to where you were looking to go.
I don't care, and I still don't, and I don't need to do it now. And I've got guys that work for me now, and I'll still do it. And that's the greatest lesson if you have employees. When your employees see you do something that they don't want to do. Mm-hmm. But so, I was running these models, trying to syndicate these deals, and looking back, nobody was going to invest with me.
I got to bring you back real quick. Quickly explain what a cap rate is.
So it's basically a measure of how profitable a piece of real estate or a business is going to be, and at the time I was buying, anything above, an 8 cap, was all right. Mm-hmm. I was really going after those 10, 11 caps, and it's just a ratio. But
that's a super high cap rate. You can't get that anymore, really.
Now you're looking at 4 and 5s. I've got properties in my portfolio that are insane. But I was trying to syndicate deals, And I spent literally 10 years doing this.
So you were just running around, figuring out these numbers, building these models. Were you trying to get people to invest with you?
I was trying to syndicate these deals.
Did you do any deals during that 10 years?
Nope.
And it was because you couldn't get the money up, and you were sitting there saying, "Hey guys, there's opportunity here. There's equity here."
I went to family. Nobody wanted to invest. But what I was doing during that 10 years, I was saving my money. And I didn't know it then, but I was educating myself. So when I finally had the money to say, screw everybody else, I'm doing it myself, I had the money, I also had the education. So
you were walking through those things.
Yeah.
You were visualizing what you wanted to do, and you were actually discovering what it took and what was out there for those 10 years.
If I didn't have the education but I had the money, I wouldn't have any money right now.
Yeah.
That's important. You know, it's almost like you can't jump before you learn to walk.
10 years of education, running through these models. You're almost doing like a flight simulator. You were working through all this stuff, but you actually weren't
writing proposals, prospectuses.
But you weren't actually executing on it because you didn't have the funds to do it. But at the same time, you were saving a ton of money during that 10-year span. How much money did you save?
Well, by the time I did my first deal, I bought a house in 2004. It was almost the height of the market, and I was going to flip it. I was going to buy a bar. My mother talked me out of buying a bar in Philly. You should buy a house, don't buy a bar, don't buy a bar. So I mistakenly bought the house. I should have bought the bar. And that was right when broke up with a girl, changed jobs. I started working for Citigroup, bought the house. My dad died. So my mind was just a mess. So what turned into what should have been a 6-month renovation project turned into 3 years. And what happened during that 3 years is the market crashed. So, you know, I'm in this house. I finally finished renovating it. The market is crashed.
2008 now, you're saying?
Yeah, 2008. Market crashed. So I wasn't selling this house. So I was working at Citigroup. I got recruited by BlackRock, and that's when things really ramped up.
And you were building data centers for BlackRock.
Yeah, so they hired me to start their data center portfolio group. So I was responsible for building out their data center team. So taking care of all of their existing data center co-location leases, locating new properties to put data centers in, renovating their existing data centers, building out the manpower to manage the tech ops in all these spaces as well.
So what did the data centers actually do?
So that's where all the blinky lights are. So that's where all of the server farms and the networking gear and all the communications come into to run BlackRock. BlackRock's trading desks, BlackRock's all of their client systems.
And for people who don't know, BlackRock is the #1 asset manager in the world.
Yeah.
I think their assets, I don't even know where
I don't know what they are
today.
now. I know when I left they were it was right after the last acquisition. I think they shot up to maybe 4 trillion, 6 trillion, something like that.
Yeah, I was going to say it's 9.5 now.
Yeah, so they were at 6 when I left. So I was their 942nd employee.
And just to talk about that real quick, I'm dealing with some companies in my space that are the 4th, 5th largest asset managers in the world, and they're at 300 billion.
Yeah, they were
500 billion,
yeah.
1 trillion.
So they manage money for entire countries. Entire countries give them their money to manage.
Yeah.
So they were huge, and I was their 942nd employee.
Yeah, you were there early on.
Yeah, when I left, there was like 14,000 employees when I left. So I was there for all the major mergers.
So when you would go out and you would identify properties, they were relying on that knowledge that you had to understand. Is this a good buy? Is this a good place to put our land? You would have to You would probably have to check in with the EPA, local regulations.
I was working on The last data center I built was about $100 million project. It was in Amherst, New York. I worked with the state of New York on all the tax incentive programs. I worked on the acquisition of the land with the landowner. I was myself and one of my colleagues were in charge of managing the engineering of the data center. We were inventing our own stuff. So, one of the guys, my colleague, he
Shout him out.
he's beyond shouting out. He's probably worth a couple $1 billion. But he
Just let the folks know that we got within arm's length some billionaires attached to Fireside.
So his wife is one of the 8 founding members of BlackRock. So him
her
and I
name
worked. Barbara Novick.
Yeah.
So I worked directly.
Barbara's big time.
Yeah, I worked directly with her husband, who just over my 11, 12 years at BlackRock was my mentor.
Mm-hmm.
He taught me how to think. And there's no way I could describe it.
Critically think or think about
everything. Just analyze risk.
macro or micro?
I don't even know what those 2 words mean.
So was it diving and drilling down on the risk, or was it looking and assessing at the whole property of
Diving and drilling down.
drilling down?
Everything at BlackRock is hyper focused, critical detail, and so he taught me just how to just think it, and I extrapolated that information into my own business, and he's the reason why I am. Him and my mother are the reasons why I am where I am today.
You still in touch with him today?
All the time.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, he was my mentor. He was my therapist. He was my business coach. He was my
Isn't it
friend.
great to have those type of people that you stumble upon in your life? I know I have some of those in my life.
Salt of the earth. The guy would walk into meetings,
And just be loved.
messy hair, a hole in his shirt, and vendors would kind of not give him the time of day and give him attitude. And after the meetings, I pull him aside. You do realize that guy's probably worth at the time over $1 billion. Like what he says goes. And then I'd watch him treat him differently.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, and it's so crazy because that shouldn't be it. I actually had a conversation with the guy Duke from Montana. He's in my coaching group, and Duke has sold many coaching businesses. He actually does a massive consulting business for institutional traders still to this day. They pay him about $25,000 a month. Duke, if I had that correct, not to put your business out there, but he was talking about just today on our call, and he was like, Ryan, he goes, I don't ever underestimate anybody because of their net worth. He goes, you got to understand that everybody's unique in who they are. So what Josh can do, Ryan cannot do specifically. What Ryan can do, Josh cannot do. And you got a set of skills that if you just hustle and grind and eventually get lucky, you'll end up where you want to end up if you chase it down. And that's something that's empowering that everybody should really understand.
Well, he was also, aside from the money, he was a brilliant engineer. I mean, he was easily the smartest man in the room, every room I went into. Mm-hmm. You're getting some love right there.
Yeah, he's good.
But working with him was just amazing. So BlackRock, in the early days, they would just throw money at you, and I never spent that money. And I was
so you were just banking.
Yeah, I was still running the models, still looking at things to buy, and I bought my first deal. It's a flip house in Asbury Park. The market had crashed. Everybody told me I was nuts.
Why'd you target Asbury?
It's by the beach, and it was a gay community. I tell my kids all the time. We see the pride flag, and I say, you know what that is? And that's the gay flag. I said, no, that's money. Those
Why did you think that? Why did you think?
Because that group of people, they care about their community probably more than anybody I've ever seen, and
In what way? In a sense of
pride,
like the pride of their
the
community,
pride of ownership, pride of their community, and not to sound funny, but
And how many years ago was that?
2010.
2010.
So
So
market
Obama,
was at the bottom.
Obama had just said, hey, gays are allowed to get married, all of these things. And I
Not
think
yet.
it wasn't at that point
Not yet. No, that was later. But,
so it was still very, like, the gay community was, in a sense, I don't want to say looked down at, but it was different than traditional world. Or
it wasn't. I mean, it was. Look, I worked in the city. I was entering the Asbury market, so for me, it was normal. Not that it's abnormal, but
yeah,
it was,
you were around a
it
lot
was,
of diversity.
Yeah.
You understood.
So, but it was a gay community. It was by the beach. There was no way that couldn't take off. So I bought my first deal in Asbury. I took it down to zero. Every dollar I had to borrow money. The only person who lent me money was my mother.
Explain, took it down to zero.
I spent every dime I had. Every dime. I bought this house. It was an old 1890s Victorian that was foreclosed on. It was a mess. It was vacant for years. And I was building a data center in East Wenatchee, Washington State at the time. Huge project. And I was, me and Barry were in charge of the project. I was flying out to Seattle like on a Monday, driving 3 hours to Wenatchee, coming back on a Thursday, strapping my tool belt on Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, working on this house. And
how driven were you at the time? Give us a peek into your mindset.
I took it down to zero.
You were like,
There's
I'm going
nothing
all
more
in,
driven.
I'm not afraid.
There's nothing more driven than that. I spent every dime I had saved.
So there was, and this is something that a lot of people who need to leave their jobs, and again, this is what this podcast is about, leave the rat race. You didn't take traditional ways.
No.
You're betting on you. So you
This was
are your guarantee in your head. There's no guarantees, but you're your guarantee to say, I'm going to get over, around, and under.
I remember
hurdle.
there was things I didn't want to do or have to do that I said to myself, I'm in this house by myself. I have no choice but to do that. Because if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. And that's the mindset you have to have.
Mm-hmm.
And still to this day, I still act like that. But, I renovate this house 6 months, sell it, made my margin, and at the time I was finishing up the house, I met my now wife. And
What's your wife's name? Let's give her a shout out.
Orly. My wife-
Orly?
Yes, Orly.
That's a unique name.
She's Israeli.
That's cool.
She is awesome.
Orly.
She is awesome. I met my...
Does your kids practice the...
we are Jewish, yeah.
You're Jewish, yeah. Awesome.
We're Jewish. I'm Russian and Italian. My father was Roman Catholic. My mother's a Russian Jew.
Mm-hmm.
My wife is Israeli, from Israel. My kids are raised Jewish. But so I met my wife. I said, look, I got this house in Asbury. I was just finishing up at the time. I remember we were dating. She's so hot.
Give me a ring. Give me a ring.
No, not at all.
No, I'm kidding.
She would bring me little sandwiches while I was working.
Isn't that the little things, man? As like, I feel as like a man's man. Like, my wife is the same. Like, bringing you a sandwich.
My wife is a hustler. She is a leader in her industry. What
does she do? Let's talk about her for a second.
She's in executive sales at Salesforce.
Salesforce, huge CRM system used predominantly in
does
insurance and
executive sales there.
Yeah.
So she deals with all huge companies. She sells cloud
How
computing.
big is Salesforce now? They're pretty big.
Pretty freaking big.
Yeah.
But so I did this deal. I said, babe, we got this house, or I got this house. Why don't we rent out Manalapan and move here? It's a cool place. I barely own anything in the house. And at the time, Asbury was there was a lot of petty crime. So she didn't feel comfortable. So I said, all right. So I sold the house. And then she wanted to, things got serious. She moved in with me, and she wanted to buy our own house. So we wound up finding a lot in Belmar, and I built the house there. So I took a hiatus from my business dreams to build that house. And then, say we're in the house a year. So 2013, I started full force just buying stuff. I was buying dilapidated crack houses, multifamily crack houses
Asbury.
in Asbury Park. I was buying stuff for...
You know Bobby Johnson by any chance?
Mm-mm. No. I don't. I was buying stuff for... I bought a 4-family for $270,000 on the good side of Asbury Park.
Wow.
Dumped $150,000 into it.
Do you still own that property?
Yeah.
What is it worth today?
$1 million.
It's crazy.
But I'll never sell it because...
Your rent roll is so crazy.
The gross,
cap rate's high.
The cap rate's high. The gross rents are almost $100,000 a year. And I'm levered.
Where would you take that asset? Go do it that you could control it the way that you do, your taxes.
I don't want to diverge too much, but so
don't worry, the IRS isn't watching yet.
I pay my taxes. I
wait until the end of until they send me a letter.
I bought it for $270. I dumped $150 into it. I had a $350,000 mortgage, so I spent a total of $270 plus $150. What is that? That's $4 and change.
Yeah.
I had a $370,000 mortgage. I think I had about $80,000 of my own equity in it. 2 years later, I did a cash out refi, pulled my 80 out plus some, and I'm still cash flowing on that property at least $3,000 a month in my pocket every month.
At the time.
Now.
I say now.
So I got $0 plus the bank's money, and I'm cash flowing like a king.
So let's talk about lever real quick, because I think a lot of people don't understand that you must keep your money in motion. If you're not getting the traditional financial planning is 3 plus 3 plus 3. It's a linear calculation when real money is made in 3 times 3 times 3. That's the velocity of money.
I don't know what you're talking about, but I will take your word for it.
But you do, because you're doing it. So it's saying, hey, I have this asset here. It's worth X. It's my equity's essentially stuck in there. I want to take this money out, which I've already used, and then apply it over here to go do it again and again and again. That's leverage. That's the velocity of money, getting multiple turns on your dollar.
And that's essentially, I guess, what I did. So I bought that place, renovated it, bought several more places, flipped a bunch of houses in between, and I just kept
building,
putting that money towards the business. And it over those years I was at BlackRock, still saving the shit out of my money.
What years is 2013, 15, 16? Where are we at?
2013 to 2016.
You're still at BlackRock.
I left BlackRock in 16.
And if you don't mind me asking, what were you making at BlackRock at the time to say, hey, I'm giving up this side hustle. I've been buying properties, flipping properties, owning rentals.
A little under 3.
Yeah, that's a nice 6-figure income from the largest asset manager in the world. Mm-hmm. You didn't have to wake up and worry about your paycheck coming in.
The benefits were phenomenal. I had 5 or 6 weeks of vacation. And I was making a little under $300,000 a year. I was still banking the shit out of it. Every dime I had was still, there were times I was buying 2-3 properties a month. I got to the point where I was a cash buyer. So I basically buy cash, renovate cash, and do a cash out refi at the end to get my money back. And 2016, I said to my wife, I'm working 7 days a week, 12, 13 years. I cannot do this anymore. I had
the commute beats you up.
I got offered a job at 2 Sigma, which is a hell of a hedge fund. I turned them down. They got pissed.
What did they offer you?
Oh, almost 4. They got pissed. I got offered a job at Facebook. Move out to Menlo. Turned that down, and they were like,
"What did they offer you?"
We weren't at the offer letter stage, but I got the verbal. We want to move you out here. And at that point, I said, you know what? Thank you, but I'm so close to living my dream, I can't. I had an interview at Google. I turned it down. And I went into BlackRock. I gave 60 days notice, and I left. My wife said to me, she goes, you're at some point, and I didn't realize it, that it had happened. My dream became a reality.
Mm-hmm. You were there.
I didn't know.
You arrived.
I didn't know.
Yeah, because you're still
And
in that mentality of, I'm going to get it, I'm going to get it, I'm going to get it.
It took my wife to tell me, like, you make more money doing the real estate thing.
Yeah, what are we doing here, Josh?
Like, just do it. So I was finishing up 2 houses that I was getting ready to sell. So I had a boatload of money coming in from that. I left BlackRock. The house is sold. And I knew I had a couple of years of living expenses. And I was building houses, flipping houses. I bought a huge piece of, I bought the corner of Grand Avenue and 2nd in Asbury Park, right by the beach. This old 1856 Victorian. It was like the prime piece of real estate that everybody was chasing, and I got it.
How?
Persistence. I chased that house for 6 years. I befriended the owner, and I got him on a day where he just had enough. I had my checkbook. I said, I'll write you a check, $275,000. What do you say? And
he was ready.
He was ready. And the next day I closed. The next day I hung my sign, and one of the biggest real estate owners in Asbury Park who lived in the area came across the street and said, I'll give you $600,000 for it. I mean, I would have doubled my money in a day. And I said, thank you, but no thank you.
Now why? Because you understood the numbers?
No, I had the dream of tearing that down or renovating the house, but then I realized I couldn't renovate it. So then I was going to tear it down and build 3 luxury townhomes. And I knew I was going to make more than $325,000. So I went through a very long, arduous process, 2-year process to
variance, the whole 9
yards.
Yeah,
it really got strung along. 2 years, I spent a boatload of money to get the approvals. I finally got the approvals. I got the approvals in 2019, maybe 2020-ish, 2019, and I wasn't sure about the market. Everybody started talking about how frothy the market is, and so I was like, maybe I shouldn't do this. I don't want to be coming to market with $1 million townhomes. So I was like, I was working with the city. All right, how about I turn it into a 4-unit apartment building? Then the opportunity came up to buy the place next door. So I quickly jumped on that, bought that cash. It was a 2-family. So now I owned half of the block between 2nd and 3rd on Grand Avenue in Asbury Park. I'm the underdog. Like, there was people a lot bigger than me that was pining for that corner piece.
Chomping at the bit.
I got it.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have gotten that property, but I did. And so now I own 150 feet of frontage on Grand Avenue. And I wasn't going to develop it. And my wife was like, let's sell our house in Belmar and move to Spring Lake. So in order to do that, I had to sell the corner piece. Now I own the 2-family next. I still own the 2-family next door. Sold the corner piece in June. Did very well on it.
Did you build the townhomes?
No, I sold the building as is. I ran the numbers. If I built the townhomes, I'd probably make $200,000 more than if I just sold it outright. And the risk and the amount of work involved, to me, wasn't worth.
So going back to Barbara's husband, understanding the risk and the work.
Yep.
That was the homework that you did.
Yep.
So the first property that you bought, though, next to it, did you build townhomes on that?
No.
So what did you do with it? You just...
The 2-family?
Yeah.
I still own that.
Just owned a 2-family.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think that property's worth again? You said $1 million?
No, I mean, I bought that recently. I bought that in 2020. So I bought that. It's probably worth $800,000, $850,000.
Now, are you just focused in Asbury?
No.
You do flips and rehabs.
I do flips. I do add levels. I do ground up new construction.
Now, are you extracting cash flow along the way into any other vehicles to hedge outside of real estate?
No.
Why not?
What? right?
I'm not. I'm
mean,
not
like,
giving
right?
you a lesson. I'm saying.
No, I
you're-
mean, like what? What's there to extract into? You know, I almost bought a cafe that had a building, and I was interested in the building, but you know, me and my wife said, do we really want to get up at 5 in the morning to run a cafe?
Yeah.
And
No.
hindsight's 2020. I should have bought it because I could have sold the business and kept the building. But I know how to build stuff. I know how to renovate stuff. I know how to rent stuff. I know how to buy stuff inexpensively. Stick with what you know, right?
So if you were talking about real estate today, and I know you're looking to potentially find the golden nugget in Spring Lake, and you're being strategic and patient, and
No, my wife's in charge of that. There's nothing strategic or patient about it.
so my point is, you got to build your home for your family.
Yes.
What is your next project? What is your next goal that you're looking to achieve in your business?
Well, in 2018, I saw the market kind of shifting. And I was worried because I was buying during the last crash, and I was worried that, you know, it was becoming harder to find good deals. So I was like, all right, what do I know how to do? Well, I know how to build stuff. All right, so let me start a contracting business. So I started Estates by Vallario, and I started taking on customer work. And that has morphed into hiring employees, and that has become a 7-figure business.
That's awesome. And that's flips, building, new home, new construction.
Vallario Properties is the development arm. This is the registered construction company, the registered New Jersey State builder's number. So this is Estates by Vallario is the contractor. So this is what I do customer work in. So I do anything from building homes for people to additions, add levels, basements, kitchens, bathrooms. I do it all. You know, it's this blessed curse of having to feed the machine, right? So now I have employees, I have workers' compensation, I have, you know, general liability, I have vehicles, I have you know, a business. I wake up and you know, every month I have to cover $20,000 a month in payroll. So the only way I could do that is customer work. So you know, I'm doing the customer work, and I really actually enjoy it. And I'm a different contractor because a lot of contractors do it because they have to. You know, it's what puts food on their table. And they, you know, their work has that mentality. They have to squeeze out the last dollar. They have to charge that last change order. You know, everything's a change order because they got to make their money. Now, I have a business to run, and I watch the numbers, but I do it because I like it. I could shut the Estates by Vallario down tomorrow, and I'd be just fine. You know, like I said, you know, I've got 2 houses that I'm starting in Belmar, or I'm going through the process now, the approval process now. And
You're doing some work right up the road on Bay Ave.
I've done a bunch of houses right up the road, yeah. But I make a majority of my money building for myself. That's the bulk of it. And you know, the customer work, it feeds the machine. But that's not to say that it's less of my focus. The customer work is a majority of my focus.
It's the base hits that you want to do that just keeps paying the bills as your other assets appreciate and you grow your brand.
So, you know, I'm at the point now where, you know, we sold Belmar. I sold the corner piece in Asbury. And I've never seen this before, where this weird mix of supply-demand issues and inflation.
Yeah.
You know, I am...
Where do you think inflation is coming from? Like, what's driving that?
That's a trick question. What's driving that? That's being perpetuated on, or that's promoted on purpose. My humble opinion. It's just my opinion.
Promoted on purpose. What do you mean by that?
I think A lot of people are making money off of these higher prices.
So people are understanding that if you remove the goods, you remove the services, it's kind of like a hidden tax to the regular person.
Think?
I'm asking you.
Yeah.
It's a hidden tax to the to the
they
regular.
pumped all this money in the economy, and they're taking it back. They're taking it back. And look,
How do you hedge against that?
What'd you say?
How do you hedge against it?
Hard assets. As real estate people, especially landlords, who bought their properties before all this started, are making a killing right now. Rents shot up, our expenses shot up, but rents shot up. Hard asset prices shot up, so our properties are worth much more now, and interest rates are still super low.
BlackRock actually bought a ton of neighborhoods.
Is that BlackRock or Blackstone?
I'm pretty sure it was BlackRock.
Okay, because I know
Yeah.
Blackstone buys a lot of houses.
Yeah, BlackRock, I think, actually went into these neighborhoods. And I actually, when I think about the bigger macro picture, because that's where my head's constantly at, I don't drill down on much unless needed. I look at it as a land asset grab by the wealthy, and that's across all spectrums, government, institutions, whatever. And if you can understand that the traditional route, CPI, Consumer Price Index, is a driven number that they say is inflation, but food and oil is not mixed into that. So you have an inflation currently of the last month, and people may challenge me, but I think it was like 5.6. You have a COLA increase for Social Security by like 5.6, 5.7. So you're seeing this all happen.
I went to buy a steak. I'm a vegan, but my family is not. So I went to buy steaks the other week, ribeye steaks at Whole Foods. They used to be $13.99 regular price, on sale for $10.99 often.
First of all, I need to correct you. You need to go to Colonial Market in Point Pleasant for your steaks.
$27.99 a pound.
Yeah, it's insane.
For ribeye steaks.
Mm-hmm.
Doubled.
And people are mad at these businesses, but these businesses aren't driving
It's
it.
not our fault.
Yeah, your cost has gone up, and
Lumber material. I mean, thankfully Doug fir went down, but hardwood flooring material is more than double. All the drywall, insulation, all the other stuff is super inflated. So when I go to a customer and I give them a price, let's not forget about labor. Everybody is making twice what they were making 18 months ago.
so what do you think the average guy should do to combat this, besides buying a hard asset? Bank cash?
Inflation is taxing that cash.
So put it to work.
But here's my, and I'm a negative Nelly. I err on the side of caution. I'm a pessimist. I always think the sky is falling.
You say that, but you drilled down to zero a couple times, so I actually don't believe what you're saying.
Well, I drilled down to zero when I knew everything was dirt cheap. Now, to me, everything seems so freaking expensive.
It's insane.
Like,
I hired a dog walker over the 3 days that I was in Long Island for Thanksgiving. It was like $330. Like everything is just
try
expensive.
to hire a carpenter.
Yeah, I know.
If you could find one.
I know.
So, I would love to go and buy. Going forward, the easiest thing that I've learned over the years is multifamily, or resi over retail. You either build it or renovate it once, for the most part, and then you lease it, and you sit back and you have some maintenance things, and you have a little bit of work and billing and this and that, and you collect your money. Developing is by far the hardest, in my opinion, because you have that same amount of work, and then you sell it, and you take your biggest tax hit, because it's a short-term or long-term capital gain, but most of the time short-term capital gain, and then you got to do it all over again. So, I always say developing properties will make you rich. Owning, rentals will make you wealthy, because, all of my rental properties I'll give them to my kids. That's generational wealth.
So you're talking about development is what makes you rich. Rentals is what makes you wealthy.
Yes, rentals is what I could pass down to future generations. You know, I had my children's college education paid for before they were even born because I owned hard cash flowing assets, and I know I have a 7 and a 9-year-old. So in 8 years, 9 years, when the first one's got to go to college, I just do a cash out refi. Rents are paying for that note. The appreciated value of the real estate, which will afford that cash out loan, is going to pay for their college.
If they want to go.
If they want to go.
Yeah, if they want to go.
My wife will make them go.
So, this is a question I ask everybody. Where do you see Estates by Vallario, your asset portfolio? Where do you see it going? What do you want your revs to be in your business? What do you want your total portfolio to be worth?
So I have three businesses. The rental business, Vallario Properties, which is a development business, and Estates by Vallario, which is a construction business. The Vallario Properties, I still see myself building a few houses a year just because the money's good. Estates by Vallario, the construction business, that's more ego-driven. I want to build the best stuff that I could build. I want to be that premier builder. Like, oh shit, that's Estates by Vallario. You should see the houses, or you should see the renovations he does.
You could build my next house.
Sure. But really, what I want to take all of that and use it to fund 30, 40, 50 unit buildings. That's really what I want. I want 1,000 rental units, and I kick myself in the ass every day because I could probably at this point have a few hundred if I didn't get distracted by all the other stuff. But so now I'm kind of not waiting, but feeling out the market, because you have a lot of guys now that are buying places at these exorbitant prices. And they're banking on Airbnb or VRBO, vacation rentals.
Yeah. It's a huge business. I mean, that's so expensive nowadays. And we just spent $4,000 to go up to the Catskills for 4 days.
However, that is so dependent on your local municipality.
Yeah.
Asbury Park.
Yeah, they shut it down.
Asbury
Point
Park.
shut it down.
Asbury Park shut it down.
Yeah.
You can't do a rental shorter. I think it's 30 days.
Why do you think it's getting shut down?
Because people are...
You're driving in bad traffic, problematic situations.
problem tenants.
Yeah.
Noisy tenants.
Yeah.
You're partying at you got a place for 2-3 days a week. You're partying your ass off for that week. It's creating disturbance for the neighbors. And I get it. I lived in a rental town. I lived in Belmar. And the house to the right to me was a family rental house. Family, but still rental. The one across was rental. And then 3 down was a problematic college rental house. So, it was an issue. So you're spending a couple million dollars on a house. You don't want to deal with that shit. But, so you have a lot of these guys, and a lot of guys I know that have a lot of rental units that, they bought years ago. They're buying these places now because it's the only thing that they could buy, and it's the only way they can have the numbers work for them is doing these short-term rentals. And what happens when the town they're buying in puts a squash on that? What happens if there's a recession and people aren't paying these elevated rates, and now they're buying, these, single-family, two-family houses for, 7 figures, banking on $140,000 in vacation rental income. Now you can't get that anymore.
So you're sitting in a liquid position, ready to hop on opportunities.
I'm sitting in a liquid position, ready to buy my forever home because my wife wants her dream house.
There's nothing wrong with that too.
No, and you know, look, if like I said, I just bought that property in Belmar, you know, and if another home run comes up, of course I'm going to buy it. But, you know, and that's the good thing about having the construction company, because that business is thriving while, you know, the acquisitions business is, you know, kind of waiting and seeing. I mean, I have the 2 houses in Belmar that I'm going to build. That'll be nice. But, you know, I really want to focus on the larger multifamily stuff. And quite frankly, I don't think it's in this state.
The next guy coming on owns approximately about $180,000 to $200,000 of multifamilies. He's on next week.
Million.
200 million.
Yeah.
So he, you know, he started out with, you know, a couple equity partners, and then lever, and that business seems to be, you know, the business.
It's a great business. I have no equity partners. I started this business by myself. I funded it by myself. I took, you know, a $25,000 loan from my mother on the first property, and I think I took a $25,000 loan on one of the other properties, not because I needed the money, but my mother needed a return. But other than that, this has been a complete self-funded business.
That's such a great feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, but then again, it is a good feeling. But then again, it thwarted my growth. There's no question about it. But
So we didn't answer it though. Where do you see this all going? Where's the total portfolio worth in 15 years from now? What is the revenue?
15 years from now, I want to be retired.
What is it worth?
I don't know what I'm leaning towards, or I'm moving towards cash flow only. So I know that, you know, I want to be able to open up my P.O. mailbox, and have, you know, $40, $50, $60, $100,000 a month come in extra residual money.
Yeah, residual income is something big that a lot of wealthy people talk about.
Yeah, I do know I want to have $1 million a year in residual money. That just keeps coming in. And I do know that when I die, I want to give my 2 daughters the ability to just manage or hire a manager to manage the properties and still get a boatload of money. If my one daughter wants to bake cupcakes for a living and make $30,000 a year, I want her to be able to do that, knowing that she has $100,000 a month coming in.
What are your children's name?
Lila Blue and Nia Gray.
Another unique name or two. That's awesome. So I appreciate you coming on. What I do as a question or two at the end here is ask you about other business owners in the area. Could be a contractor, could be an Asbury restaurant, could be something here in Point, whatever it may be. Give us 2 businesses that you want to give a shout out to.
Well, I've got a host of businesses.
Give us 2, and I'm sure you love them all, but give us 2 people you want to shout out.
I don't know. You stumped me on that one. I'm just going to rattle off a bunch.
Good.
Well, you got Matt,
Belmar Plumbing.
That's the reason why I'm here. You got Shore Electric, my buddy John. And he's been with me since the beginning of my business. You got my other plumber.
Where's he out of?
Red Bank.
Red Bank?
Yeah, you got my other plumber, Navison Plumbing, Mike. My buddy Rob Giuliani from Pliables, the guy that started Pliables. Used to live right around the block from me when I lived in Belmar.
Rob keeps circulating in my world. You know, Paul from Bubbacoo's, Sean who owns Fins. His name keeps coming up. We're gonna have to get him on.
So I was just at Rob's house 2 days ago. He just bought this brand new Ferrari. I was like, dude, let me sit in that car.
Let me feel the steering wheel.
He had me look at his house because he wanted me to do some things there. So let me sit in that car. What a car that is. But
let's get Rob on the show. I haven't tracked him down or tried to at all, but let's get him on. Tell him about it.
I mean, that's a story. I remember we were buying Pliables from his little push cart in 2014. Me and at the time I just had Lila Blue, and that was talk about lightning in a bottle. man. I mean, he's up to 125, 130 stores, whatever.
And he
it
had
is.
one of his partners sell out for a pretty good chunk of change too, right?
Both of them did.
Yeah, both of them sold out.
Yeah, so they sold out. They recently sold out to a private equity firm. I think Rob is now still the CEO, and his partner Abby is the creative director or something, something like that. But yeah, I mean that's just an amazing story.
That's awesome. Well, listen, dude. I mean, your story's been awesome. I think it was educational. I think it was raw and real, and I really appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. And next week we're gonna have another real estate guy. So you real estate people, tune in.
Who's coming in?
Jay Cooperman, Dynamic Capital. Started in North Jersey, moved out to PA, sold the cap rates were higher out there. Started buying old school buildings and renovating them, turning them into apartments, and getting into a little bit of the real estate front. And he's a character, but actually a very sharp guy. Most people probably wouldn't realize that because he likes to have fun.
Where does he live?
He's right here in Bayhead. He's in Bayhead, right on Osborne, around the
Can
block.
I come that night?
Absolutely, next week, the 9th.
I just want to watch and meet him, shake his hand.
Absolutely. We actually, if it's an early, we're actually doing a Thursday or Friday. We have a little bit of a live audience, so you're more than welcome, man. Come
That'd
by,
be
meet Jay. Jay's he's a good dude. He's a real dude, and I'm excited to have him on and talk more about the multifamily space. But again, thank you. I appreciate it, and
Thank you.
We'll circle back again, maybe in a year or two, and have you on again. See
I
where
need
you're
a
at.
financial planner.
I'm your guy.
All right.
I'm your guy. Guys, thank you. Tune in again next week. It was great.